Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Frank, and I'm optimistic for you. And today we're going to be talking more about numerology, the ancient metaphysical discipline which studies the values and the meanings of numbers as they appear not only in our name at birth and our birth path, but throughout our whole world, where anything that can be numerically quantified and measured and giving a numerical value has influence upon the way it manifests and the way we manifest in connection with those other energies. Really appreciate you being with me today. I hope you're going to enjoy today's journey. We're going to be talking to all you air signs out there. We're going to talk about the nature of the difference between the number of the month you're born in, because each sign obviously transits 2 months. So every sign has its own unique vibrational influence as the birth month number for that sign. Each number of the month is the cornerstone for the destiny of an entire life sign. So even though you may be an earth sign, a Gemini, Libra, or Aquarius, depending on which month you are, that will give a lot more understanding into the way you bring the vibration of that birth month into contact with your natural element of your zodiac sign. So let's get into it, and then let me explain a little bit more about what I'm saying. Gemini is the first sign we're going to be discussing. The transit of Gemini is May 21st to June 21st. Now, the month of May and the month of June are under different months, obviously, and which also reflect different numerical vibrations. The month of May is the number 5, month of June is the number 6. So if you are a Gemini and you are born in the month of May, the first cycle of your life, because each of the numbers on our birth path represent a cycle of our whole destiny during this incarnation. So the birth month is the cornerstone first cycle of life. And that's the energy that will influence the developing child as he starts moving forward on his life path. So let's start again with Gemini. If you're a May-born Gemini, you're under the influence in your first cycle of your life of the number 5. The number 5 is the number of the senses, the number of chance, the number of change. It's called the number of man. We have 5 senses. We have 5 extremities. It's the number of possibility, of expansion, of luck, fortune, anything to do with the senses, sensory appetites intensified, travel. So anyway, a child, Gemini child born in the month of May will find that their early childhood experience will be one filled with changes and wide variety of experiences, sometimes being very confusing and unsettling to a child who's looking to kind of ground oneself in understanding his own identity or her own identity as they evolve. So a child born in May under the sign of Gemini will be discovering many, many new experiences, many strange encounters with circumstances that are brought from sources that aren't understood by the developing child. The Gemini has tremendous intuitive capacity. While it's tremendously intellectual as well, mental, it is powerfully intuitive. So the highly sensitized energy of Gemini can find, unless it's ready based on other aspects of either the name or the birth path, may find the fast and freewheeling movement of the course of their life, maybe filled with many relocations of family, new cities to live in, new friends, making friends, letting them go and finding new friends. Because the number 5 is all about expansion, change, not settling and staying put. It's about movement, about understanding the breadth of the human condition. And for a young child, sometimes that could be very, very unsettling. You know, a lot of kids look for stability and stuff, and a Gemini child born in May will be exposed to many exciting opportunities, but sometimes very confusing ones and very unsettling ones until they're a little bit later in their young adulthood when they're able to process more maturely the impulses of and the vibration of the effective number 5 as the first part energy of their life. So if you're a Gemini born in May, you probably had a childhood who was very, very active, very much involved with the world, many friends, much movement, joining lots of different groups. Nothing was ever sedentary or stable for very long. You had to be ready to move or change or adapt at a moment's notice. So that's the thing about number 5 for the Gemini child. Now, the same sign, Gemini, air, highly intellectualized, intuitive, born in June, is under the influence of a totally different kind. The number 6. If the number 5 is the number of man and change and luck and expansion, number 6 is the number that is totally different in a lot of ways. It's the number of family, of duty, of obligation, of personal responsibility. It's the number of sacrifice. So you have two totally different initial energies in the formative years of the first cycle of the same sign. And that's what's so interesting. As we get to Libra and Aquarius, it's a different set of number vibrations that are having this kind of dual effect depending on which month is the sign is manifesting. So to the June-born Gemini, now the opposite may be true. You may have a much more stable childhood, much more regimented. A child born in June may find themselves constrained and put in positions where they have many responsibilities and duties, or are seen as very reliable by parents and friends and siblings. They may have many burdens thrust upon them that they didn't particularly seek out, but the energy of number 6 has this tremendous capacity to bear the burdens of others, to take on responsibility that isn't inherently your own. But again, to a young, evolving child, those may be overwhelming impulses. They may feel confined and suffocated by their obligations to family and friends. They're wondering why people seek them out and always dump a lot of stuff onto them. That's because the number 6 draws that kind of energy to it. So the Gemini born in June will have probably a more stable childhood in terms of a stable family life, more sedentary, more established, more structured, more regimented to a sense of community, home, make connections to institutions like churches, schools, and other kind of structured things society does to bring things together. Because number 6 is the number of responsibility and institutionality of service as well. So the June-born child is going to find as they evolve through their first cycle of life that life is they're sort of the giant dumping ground for the responsibilities of many people. And it can be a very confusing thing for a young child until they get older. And if they learn to understand that this is just part of the energy vibration and part of the cycle, they're here to learn this experience. It also provides tremendous protection and love. It's a very loving and nurturing number. Not to say the number 5 doesn't have love and nurturing, but it's a much more fluid dynamic under the influence of number 5. Number 6 is a much more structured, steady, nurturing. Now, it may either manifest as a very steady, safe young childhood, or it could be a giant burden that is thrust upon a child and immersed into a unique circumstance of obligation that the child is forced to carry. Depends on how it's manifested from karma and from other elements in the name and the birth path. But in general, the June-born Gemini is going to find responsibility, obligation, and commitment to those and loyalty and devotion and parenting elements and influences being the dominating driving force of their childhood. So you can see 2 very different impulses, even though they're the very same sign. And both of those numbers are informing the Gemini child in a very unique way to understand their own role and their own place in the world, and their own evolution of their destiny. Now, let's get to the Libras. All you Libras out there. The Libra, who are born transit from September 23rd to October 22nd. Libra, if you are born in the month of September, it's going to be a lot different than if you're born in the month of October. Here's why. Under September's vibration, which is represented by the number 9 in numerology, the number 9 is the number of giving, of sacrifice, of self-surrender, of self-effacing, of emotional commitment and emotional engagement with the world, sometimes to the detriment and hurt of a young child born on the influence of the number 9. And I don't mean for this to be a mean-spirited kind of sense of hurt. Talking about number 9 is very giving, very sensitive to the needs of other people. The number 9 in numerology is the great, great giver. It is the accumulation. It's the finishing cycle of the numbers from 1 to 9. 1 begins at 9 is the end of the cycle. 9 is a finisher, a completion number. So you got a child starting in life with a number of completion. And so there can be some confusion there in the early evolving Libra child born on the influence of 9, who may find themselves feeling very alone or forgotten by people they care about. They want to give and give out of love and caring for the people around them. And they'll feel that sometimes because 9 disappears, if you add 9 to any other number in numerology, it always reduces and comes back to the initial number. It's like a mirror. So if you add 9 to the number 6, 9 and 6 is 15. In numerology, we reduce to a single digit. 1 and 5 is 6. 6 remains, 9 disappears. So 9 is the mirror in which every other number is reflected. And that means it's kind of non-existent to the other numbers, although all the people gravitate to the beauty and the selflessness of that number 9. But unfortunately, sometimes the child born under the influence of September number 9 can feel lonely, can feel unappreciated, can feel forgotten by the people they love. And they ask why I give so much and I'm always there for my friends. Why aren't they there for me? So until they get later in the cycle when they're able to manage more in a more mature way, the influences of their empathy and their humanitarian impulse and their natural capacity for sacrifice for others. They may struggle a little bit early on with emotions, okay, but they're gonna have a connection to everybody. Number 9 is universal in its outreach, like the number 5 in a lot of ways. Its breadth of appeal is very, very large, and it really embraces everybody and everything because 9 sees the world in its most general and its greatest scope of humanity. And they have a very warm, giving nature. They're very charismatic. They're very, very playful and mischievous. They have great sensitivity and emotional care. So the September-born Libra will be a much more sensitive. I mean, they're already sensitive because being an air sign, there's so much more intuition at work and more elevation of thought in the Libra child anyway, because it's such a sensitive child. But now, under the influence of the number 9 is the first cycle, now the emotions come into play, and it could, in conjunction with its element of air, can find itself having a difficult time locating its own identity in its own emotional construct, because number 9 is meant to give selflessly and not expect anything in return. So until they learn to understand that energy and to be strong within themselves about it, it could be a little bit difficult. But that's the Libra born in September. Now let's talk about the Libra born in October. If you're born in October under the sign of Libra, you are under the influence of the number 10. In numerology, that reduces to the number 1, which reduces to the number of man, the male principle, the acting agent. It's also the number 10 in the tarot deck is the Wheel of Fortune. Okay, it's the number 10 card. Now, if the September Libra is a more emotional, sensitive child who is given to selflessness, the October-born Libra is the diametrical opposite. Number 1 is the number of self, of ego, of not necessarily selfishness, but self-directed energy. Okay? So an October-born Libra is going to have a much stronger sense of identity, a much stronger sense of will, of desire to execute one's will in the world, a more natural impulse to make sure that their presence is felt in the world, that they seek out and get the things they go after, because there's a strong independent energy at work in the October-born Libra, being under the influence of number one. Number one is the number of action, of agency, bringing things into fruition, of leadership, of solitude, of authority and strength of self. So the October Libra is going to be a lot more confident in themselves, learning to develop more will, learning to feel more comfortable in independent circumstances, standing on their own, not necessarily needing other people to validate them, although everybody needs validation, but their sense of self is evolving all the time in Libra, born in October, that they're going to be much more able to adapt to independence than a September-born Libra, which is more emotionally dependent and desires more connection to other human beings. The October-born Libra is more of a lone wolf, more of a freewheeler, more of a person willing to roll with chance and change and try their hand and see what the world can bring them based on their own desires and needs. So two very different impulses under the sign of Libra. And, they're both the same air sign. They're both have all of those beautiful qualities of intuition and intellect and elevated thought and sensitivity and progression of the way they look at existence through a very progressive lens of idealism and action. But the difference is one will be driven in September, the more emotionally driven; in October, more will-driven, more self-driven, more self-realized. Not to say September will not be self-realized, but it'll be a longer, slower process to understanding their own identity. Whereas the October one comes right out of the chute knowing that, hey, it's about me. I am the center of everything. I feel comfortable being the center of everything. I'm going to let you know I'm here. And hey, take me for who I am, love me for who I am, because here I am, baby. That's the difference between the 2 months being born in under the sign of Libra. So finally, let's take Aquarius, the final of the 3 air signs. A beautiful, beautiful sign. We're in the age of Aquarius, so we're all kind of like swimming in that atmosphere, in that ozone of the Aquarian aura, as we are right now. And the Aquarian transit runs from January 21st to February 20th, as you can see up there in the chart. Now, we have the same situation here. We have another sign split into 2 months. Hey, they're all like that, But here's the energy of how the Aquarian differences is for the first cycle of life. If you're a January-born Aquarian, you are under the influence of January, which is what? The number 1. Like October, the number 1 is at work. So as a child, the Aquarian born in January tends to be more independent thinking, more self-reliant, more ego-driven, more conscious of their own identity, more freewheeling in their approach, more goal-oriented and more independently goal-oriented, because under the influence, again, of the number 1, like I said, 1 is the number of the masculine force, the male principle, that which generates action, leadership, authority, pioneer spirit, solidity and strength of will and identity. That's the influence of an Aquarian. So the child of Aquarius in the first cycle of life under number 1 may find a little bit of a feeling of isolation, because number 1 is the loner number. And as a child, there's a desire to connect and build attachment, but they may find that as time goes on that they're finding that they're having to rely more on their own resources and assets in order for their own self-fulfillment and satisfaction. Life is putting them into situations where they got to stand more on their own 2 feet, be more independent, emotionally, willfully, out in the world, in their relationships with people. They may feel that they're kind of different, that they're unique. They have a strong strong sense of self that is evolving and growing and morphing, just the way the evolution of the sign evolves. Only it's going to be nuanced with the force of will and self and identity. That's the January Aquarian. Now, we go to the February born Aquarian. Now we're talking about the influence of the number 2. That is the first cycle of life influence for Aquarian born in February. Now, number 1, as we said, is the masculine principle, that which acts, that which generates action. The feminine principle is the number 2. That is the agent receiving the action, the passive, receptive energy that bring together that which acts to find the thing to act upon. That's why you have male and female, the idea that one gives, the other receives. One generates, the other cooperates. One partners, one is independent, the feminine partners, sees themselves as a partnering energy. So under the number 2, as a child, the Aquarian may find themselves highly, highly sensitized. You already have an incredibly intuitive and highly intellectual, intelligent child that's born under the sign of Aquarius. But now that energy is intensified with emotion and sensitivity and receptivity to all kinds of sensitive energies, because 2 is like an antenna for emotion and harmonization. 2 seeks to harmonize disparate energies. 2s are reconcilers, balancers, nurturers. So the child born in February under the sign of Aquarius may find themselves wanting to defer to stronger energies. Number 2 is a partnering energy. So it tends to want to, while it wants to find out who they are, they're going to find the greatest fulfillment is through partnering with other stronger energies, where they prefer to be a partner than a leader. Although they have the capacity to lead, their first desire is to really be the partner with some other thing on a cause or in a purpose. And the same thing in a familial family situation. You'll have a very, you may have the February born Aquarian may be the low man on the totem pole or low woman on the girl on the totem pole, energetically, depending on what the other energies of the other family members are. But they will be seen as the little darling of the family because it's a highly feminine energy. And we're not talking about male or female. We're not going to talk about gender. We're talking about the kind of energy expressed. So the February born Aquarian, male or female, is going to be expressing a beautiful, sensitive, creative, harmonizing feminine energy that is going to be very attractive. Things will happen different under the number 2 of February 2. 2 is an attracting number. Things will come to the Aquarian if they just sit back and let it, because the power of attraction of number 2, whereas the January Aquarian is go out and get it yourself. They're driven by will. They don't settle for waiting for things to come to them. They go out and get it themselves. They're the ones who are the energetic force, whereas the sensitive, more passive, more receptive energy of the February Aquarian it has a tremendous capacity to attract things to it. Beautiful energies, other people, harmonious relationships. They are the harmonizer. They are the ones who bring a beautiful, inspired, harmonizing effort to everything they do. And it may be a little difficult for the February Aquarian in this way, in the fact that they're so sensitive that they're responding to all kinds of subtler forms of energy that can be very confusing and very difficult for a very young child who's kind of trying to understand how life is evolving for them. But as they get older in their young adult age, they're going to realize that this sensitivity is translating into creativity, into opportunities to harmonize and bring grace and beauty to everything they do in the world, whether they're doing something creative through the arts or through through some sort of professional career where those harmonizing, partnering energies are there to bring a unifying force to other energies that are out there floating willy-nilly. The harmonizing effort of the Aquarian born in February can really unify those energies because they're natural diplomats and harmony makers, okay? So obviously you see the two different energies between those two. So again, it's fascinating when you take a look. I mean, we all just think, oh yeah, well, gee, I'm a Gemini or I'm a Libra or I'm an Aquarius. But yeah, you got to find out what month you're born in because it tells you an awful lot about the formative development of your own sense of your own identity as a particular sign with a certain element and approach to perceiving experience and evolving your own soul identity as you are transiting the incarnation of this life. And that month you're born in is that cornerstone energy for the remainder of your life. Anyway, I hope you found this fascinating, all you air signs there and cross watchers and people who love or care about Geminis, Libras, or Aquarians in their life. And I thank you for watching with me today. And if you found it interesting and compelling, I hope you'll consider subscribing, liking, sharing, leaving me a comment. I will answer any comment you send. Be glad to help, give you any feedback or clarify some sort of issue. And if I may, I'd like to give myself a little plug. As you can see over here in the corner, I have an icon here of the cover of my volume of poetry. I am, besides being a numerologist, I am also a poet. And I have my volume that I'm very proud of, my collected poems, called The Au Revoir of an Enormous Us. It is my complete life's work of poetry. It's available at Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com. It's a very substantial volume, almost 500 pages, over 50 years of my writing, covering poems about travel, love and sorrow, imagination, voyages, anything, arts, studies of the arts, studies of rhyming and the history of literature and all kinds of other subjects. And one that's particularly dear to my heart and that I hope you'll find interesting being a student of metaphysics yourself, one whole section of the book covers the 22 cards of the major arcana. They're poetic meditative sketches on the major arcana called the Arcane Reveries. It's about a 50-page section of the book, and you'll have it's illustrated beautifully with the image of the tarot card and the number of the card. And I will be doing future videos about the numerological significance of the tarot cards of the major arcana and even the minor arcana. But they're poetic sketches discussing and exploring the suggested meanings, significances, nuances, and energies of each of the cards, and I'm very proud of it. And it's a part of this volume, The Au Revoir of an Enormous Us, my collected poems. I hope you will take a chance, do me the privilege and the honor of checking out my book, again, at Amazon.com or BarnesandNoble.com. And thank you for allowing me to give that a plug. Again, I want to thank you all for being here today, whether you're a Gemini, a Libra, an Aquarius, someone who's in love or has a child or a parent or a brother, sister, or a dear friend who's one of these signs, hopefully, or just a cross-watcher who's just kind of curious about some other sign of these people you're interested, someone you know. I hope it was illuminating. I hope it helps give you insight a little bit more into your own sense of your own identity and about your journey, about the cornerstone of how it began and how it may have influenced you differently than your very near cousin, the sign born in the other month of the transit of your sign. And I hope it illuminates, inspires, and I hope you'll come back for my future videos. And if you like what you're seeing, again, please subscribe, like, share, or leave me a comment. I want you to remember always, it's all in the numbers, baby. I want to thank you for being with me, and I hope you enjoyed it. I send you all much love and light. God bless you all, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.